we're going to be able to register you up as hoped, but there's going to be one blemish in the whole process that I hope will verify. So the TAs, please be deployed now, not only on alert, but on high alert, okay? I would like people to go to this URL here, www.ethicadata.com/dashboard, okay? And when you come to the dashboard, I will actually follow along here, and we're going to see a thing that will sign in if you've already signed up, or to sign up, okay? So here we'll go and do this dashboard, and you'll get something that looks like, oh, no, you won't see that. You will see something that is like this, except it's not going to have an email and password, very likely. Okay, now, again, if you have an account already, you can do sign in. If you want to instead sign up, you'll get to this sort of thing, and you'll enter an email account, which again is preferable if it's one that you actually check, since password resets would be sent there. And then you'd enter a password and confirm that same password, as you've done probably on many sites before. Now, the blemish, the problem is going to come up after this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say foo@bar.com. And I'm going to say enter a password here, enter the same password. Okay, oh, they're not identical. Okay, I've got to be more careful. Okay, and I'm going to say sign up, and a most unpleasant thing will happen, and this is the blemish, and it's a blemish that it looks more distressing than it actually is. Okay, so we're going to say sign up, and this is what we get. Okay, which doesn't look that encouraging, but in fact the account has been created. Trust me, and we're going to verify that in just a second here by going and going back to the dashboard. So you can actually go ethicadata.com and put dashboard again up there at the top. And so going back to this, to the dashboard, here you go. And now you should be able to enter that information that you just entered. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to say foo@bar.com, and I am going to enter the password, and I'm going to say sign in here, okay? You'll notice that if you did have a password before and you forgot it, you could click there, it would have emailed you, but I'm going to say sign in here. Boom. And it asks me, do I want to save it? And I'll say, sure, okay. And when we sign in, you'll notice it says you have not registered in any study yet. And the operative word there is yet, okay? We're going to get you registered in the study. So, Amin, you have the phones ready for deployment? Okay. So the conceptual model here, ladies and gentlemen, is that a given user account can be associated with one or more studies in the system. So you could be a participant in a set of studies, or you could be, in fact, a administrator on several studies, and be able to have access, as a member of the research team, have access to all the data collected for those studies, okay? And right now, your accounts, unless you previously logged in, do not have that, do not have either applied. You're not yet in a study. We're going to remedy that in just a second. And Mohammed will be further adding you as administrators to the different studies, okay? To a bunch of different demo studies where there's no ethics encumbrances associated with them. Okay, So you should see this. If anyone does not see something like this, or if you've already signed in, you don't see sample studies here, please let the TAs know, and they'll help you right now, okay, if you haven't gotten this far. Because getting this far will be key. Being able to log in here will be key for the next step, which is enrolling in a set of studies. Okay? Okay, anyone need TA help? Okay, great. So we're cooking with gas. So what I'd like to do then is where it says welcome, I'd like to go over and log out for now. We're going to log back in the fullness of time. We're going to log in having registered for a set of studies on the phone. Now, Mohammed, do you need information from people on the emails that they entered so you can add them as administrators?
No, I get their email that they have used, and I can add them here
as the study administrators for the sample studies. Okay. Okay. Now, this next step is going to involve a different sort of beast, for this, for several reasons. One of them being continuity of user experience. We're going to be undertaking the step of downloading the system on an app on Android phones for this boot camp. You will get to see during the boot camp the iPhone version of the system, but just so that we're all using the same, having the same basic system, we're going to be using an Android phone to explore the system today and in subsequent days. Now, Amin here, Amin, could you raise your hand? Has with him 3 phones that he can deploy to people this month, right?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. They're charging.
Error on Google Play.
Sorry.
There's an error on Google Play Store.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is get you downloading this app. Okay. So how many people here have a Google Android phone and are not TAs? Okay. Okay, great. So I was hoping, Aiden, that you could pair with Andrew here, and I was hoping who else would know how to download it. Amin does, but Amin is taking up Winchell. Could you help Jacinta? Is it?
Yeah.
Jacinta here?
Yeah.
Jacinta? Go to Google Play and search for Ethica Health here. Okay. The Ethica Health app on Google Play. Now, how do you have a phone?
Yes, but it's iPhone, not Android.
I see. Okay. So we'll have an Android phone for you here in just a second. Do you have a phone? iPhone. Okay. We'll get you one of these Android phones as well. Okay. Okay. And provide it to you too. Okay. So if you go onto Google Play, you should be able to search for Ethica Health, and the app will then go up, and it should give you an indication that you can download the app, and you'll press that button to download it. Okay. Now this posits that you're connected with the local network. So if you need someone to help you get connected with the local Wi-Fi network, let one of the TAs know. Okay, so Arash or Tina, could you get up and just help? Is there anyone who needs to get connected to the Wi-Fi network for this to happen? No? No? So, Amin, could you update me? What's going on with the phones? Okay. Okay. So, Amin, could you give phones to Hao and to Yue in the back there? Okay.
This one is functional.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to be downloading the app, and then once it downloads, it should be able to be installed, okay? There should be a button that says install the app. Mohammed? Yeah, okay. You should be able to say install, okay?
Yeah. Alternatively,
Okay.
they can go to this URL //ethicadata.com.
Okay.
.com
Yeah.
/
And then, once it's installed, you should be able to sign into the app with the credentials that you've previously created.
They can go to this,
Yeah.
and this is the URL-based registration. It just helps them to install the app and directly takes them there. The method that we implemented for AHS.
Oh, okay.
This might be something worth mentioning.
Okay, yeah, I'll mention it. And so this is slash study 73?
I'm just gonna write it down.
Study equals 73, yeah. Okay. Okay. So Andrew and Jacinta, are you okay? Okay, Jacinta?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. You there?
I don't have the phone.
Oh, you don't have the phone yet. So could you provide the other phone to her? Is there, okay. Okay. Okay, great. Who else needs a phone? Does Hal? Did you have a phone? You have one. Okay, so you need one?
Yeah.
Lynn Payne? Do we have an extra, or are they all gone?
But you have Ethica here.
Because you say I don't have Google Play, so
Okay.
I cannot.
Okay.
But you have Ethica.
Okay.
Don't need to leave that.
Okay.
You just use.
Okay, so once it's installed, you should be able to enter the username and password that you previously entered. Okay? Are you all set, Lin Ping?
No, actually, her phone blocks the Ethica because it doesn't have the Google Play on it. It's kind of.
Oh, it's a Chinese
Yeah,
phone?
that's right.
Okay, so it blocks Google
Yeah.
Google services. Okay, okay. So Amin will provide you with a phone in just a minute here. Then, so this. UAD does. Okay. Okay. So maybe you could pull up to Hal and use the Hal phone. How about Hal? Okay. Okay. So are we okay to go forward here? Okay. Okay. Now, after you've done that, I'd like you to go through and this app. This is a very important distinction. The app being on your phone doesn't mean it's collecting any data. The app by itself doesn't collect data. The app being in certain studies collects information specific to those studies, okay? So it's only by enrolling the app in a particular study that it will collect data. By itself, it's just a shell. It allows you to opt into studies, and only then when you opt in, when you go through the process of saying, okay, do you actually start to do any sort of data collection or start to be in a situation where you could see the data on the website, okay? So we're going to get you enrolled in a bunch of studies. Now, Mohammed has very helpfully reminded me of a new feature of the system that is worthy of remark. And in fact, I'd go beyond that and say worthy of praise. That's the fact that you can give out a URL, give out an HTTP address, which will automatically allow you to opt into a set of studies by clicking on it. If you're already a user, if you've already signed up, it'll take you and present the information about the study and say, do you want to opt into this study? Do you want to opt into that study? So rather than manually doing this, actually by sending some URLs to you and you following them, you could actually opt into these studies in a more seamless fashion. But I want to show you how it will be done in a step-by-step fashion, the most basic way. So once you're inside the Ethica app, you should see a situation where you have a little plus sign within the app. And I stand remiss here because I should have had a little glimpse of it here. let me just show you what it will look like from a different presentation, okay? And we'll take a look at it. So it would look something like, okay, come on. I know, oh man, sorry folks. This is, I thought it was in that presentation. I guess it's in this one. So it would look something like, well, you have the Ethica app, and it's a little plus sign in the upper right-hand corner of the Ethica app. Okay, a plus sign.
It should be $3.
Sometimes on small phone models, it can be 3 dots, and then you look under there, and it says add registration. Do you see that?
Study registration.
Study registration. So on some models that are really small screens, it'll be visible under a 3-dot menu. In other cases, there's a plus. Do you see the plus?
Yeah.
Okay. Yacinda?
Yeah.
Yue?
Yeah.
Do you see the plus?
Yeah.
Lin Ping? See or not? See. Okay. Great. Okay. So you'll press that plus button or do study registration, and basically you will enter a study number here. So this should say enter study number, and you would do it for each of these studies. Okay. So in other words, you'll enter 65, and that will present you information about study 65. What type of information is collected, the purpose of the study, etc. And at some point, it will say, okay, or okay to continue, and you'll say, okay. And that will enroll you in that particular study. Now, the purpose of doing this is twofold. Number one, it's to allow you to see this content. Number two, if they have a little bit of encounter with the participant experience as far as what study designs can look like, the user interface for the studies. So you'll do this for 65, and then you come back and do that, press that plus again, or do the 3-dot menu and do register for study and do 63, and then 62, and then 92, and 61. Each of these in turn, all the way down to study 60, which is recreational water use, okay? Now these are 8 studies that serve as sample studies. They actually have real data collected from the research team. They're not studies that we've conducted with participants out there. They're kind of proofs of concept, or proofs. They're sort of demonstration studies, and as such, they're not encumbered by the ethical constraints of other studies. You will notice that when you opt into each one of them, the information collected is different, and you will soon see that the user interface is different for each of those studies as well. Okay, the user interface will look distinct. Some will have buttons about removing ticks. Other will have buttons about engaging in physical activity or barriers to the physical activity. So you're going to do it for each of these studies in turn. Now, if memory serves me, and Mohammed, you can correct me on this. When you opt into a study now, it takes a little bit of time for it to download the interface. Is that correct?
It should be like maybe one second or so.
Okay. Okay. So
Less than a second.
you should start to see studies, their interfaces appearing as you go through this process.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So who needs TA help? The TAs stand ready, stalwart. Okay. Okay. Amin, have we handed out all the phones that you? Okay. It's not charging fully? I see. Okay. 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 So who needs help? Who needs help? Okay. Okay. So while you're doing this, the information that you see along the way, the information on the study, It's not merely a speed bump along the process. It's not merely a nuisance. That information is the sort of information that a user would see when electing whether or not to opt into a study. So it provides information, what information is recorded, what's the purpose of the study. That's the sort of information that can be useful to inform a meaningful informed consent process. As we will see in coming days, that's not the only information that we provide for informed consent. Often we'll provide a video as well to help them understand the implications of opting in. But the information that's there provides some important understanding for the study. Are you looking for Winchell?
No, I was just
Okay, yeah, you're welcome to come in or not, and take some cookies too. So are these studies, are you adding them okay? Okay. We're going to be going through some of them later so that you can see how the user interface differs across these different studies. And we'll see how that's hitched up to the types of questionnaires that can be summoned. We'll also see how the information is configured for what types of information are collected by the study, okay? About behind the scenes, the so-called passive data collection, things like accelerometry data, GPS data, data associated with proximity of individuals to each other, etc. So these are the set of 8 studies we'll be using in coming minutes to learn also about the user interface. Now, Mohammed, have you been able to add them as administrators for these studies as well?
Give me a minute.
Okay, because we'll be going to that.
Yes, as soon as
Yeah, next.
done in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Tell me when you finish that. Okay. 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 Who needs a bit more time? Who needs a bit more time? Now, Wade, if you would like to see a little bit about what's going on here, you might go over and sit next to Amin here, because Amin has got one of the phones there, which in principle could be used. Is that right? While it's plugged in. So, Amin, do you want to follow through this process and have it opt into these studies? Is that possible? Okay. If you could register for these studies, it's study 65, 63, 62, 92, yeah.
Just sign up as a test.
Yeah, you could do it as a test account, or you could do it as your own, what have you, yeah. Okay, just something so that if Wade were interested, he could see a little bit about what's going on here. Okay? Okay, great. Okay, are we ready to go forward? Aiden, could you just make sure that that they actually see on the phone the study interfaces? Do you see buttons, that sort of stuff? Okay, we're cooking with gas. That's great. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. So next, yes, we're all set? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next I'd like you to go back to the Ethica Data website. Okay, you recall this? Okay. Now, Mohammed, did you add the esteemed member fouetbar.com?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you should be able to go back to this dashboard, enter in the email and password that you had used, okay? And then you should be able to do sign in. Boom. Here we go. And you should be able to see the sample studies on the left-hand side, okay? These are a set of studies that we'll be exploring both from the app side on the one hand, and on the other hand through this interface side, okay? This web-based interface. And we'll be exploring each of these interfaces over coming minutes. Okay. couple of pointers. On the phone, a given participant can have a device which can be enrolled in 0 or more studies. In this case, we've asked you to sign up for 8 of them. And in fact, you can switch between studies with which you're associated by right swiping or left swiping between them. And that will switch from one study interface to another. So suppose we have, a study on air quality. The next study might be a study in influenza-like illness. So for air quality, we might see buttons that relate to things like I'm coughing and wheezing, or I'm exercising, or what have you. Influenza-like illness might have buttons that report cases of illness associated with influenza-like illness symptoms. And the buttons, therefore, will be different. By swiping the interface, you can go from the information and user interface and other features of one study to the similar information in the next study, So a given participant can be in multiple of these studies at once. By that same token, information gathered by these studies about that participant will be gathered across all the studies in which they're enrolled. So maybe air quality sample study will collect GPS information and Wi-Fi so that we know where they are outside and where they are in a facility. Maybe we're concerned about agricultural workers and exposure to grain-related dust, and where they are on the farm, where they are inside the buildings may be of great interest to us. Meanwhile, influenza-like illness might put a premium on detecting how close people are to each other, different participants, to understand the transmission of infection from one to the other. That information would be collected via the phone because they're in both studies, both types of information. Similarly, there may be pop-up questionnaires, so-called ecological momentary assessments, EMAs, which are popped up for each of these studies, or any of these studies here, specific to the study. So the air quality study might ask, have you encountered any of what you consider adverse air quality within the past day? That might be an EMA that's called up and ask about coughing and wheezing and other symptoms. Influenza-like illness might ask about attitudes towards vaccination and risk perception involving exposure to influenza. Lyme disease sample study might ask about your exposure to ticks. So the point is, each of these studies is collecting information simultaneously, and a given participant, you, for example, might be asked these EMAs, these questionnaires through the day related to any of these studies in which you're enrolled. Does that make sense? So that's the picture here. Now, you are actually encountering this website now with an additional role. People who are in studies by default can log in, who are participants in studies by default can log into the system and see their own information. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going beyond that here. We're going to, we've provided you with information that allows you to log in as an administrator, sort of if you were a member of a research team. For example, let's go to one of these studies. Perhaps it'll be the physical activity sample study here. And if over on the left-hand side here, you should be able to click on the menu item for physical activity sample study, and you'll notice there's an overview tab. Do you see that? And if you go click on the overview tab, ladies and gentlemen, it will grind away for a moment, and then it will present to you some information about this study. Okay? So it gives some information about the study duration, something about the study code. You may remember this is the code you entered before to enter that study. It provides some information about the participants in the study, who's currently participating, okay? What sort of devices they have, the number of study questionnaires, these survey instruments that someone's filled out, which have expired or which have been canceled, the last time we saw a given participant, receive data from them. In other words, when did they join? When's their last day in the study? This is the sort of information that's provided in participants. In the study definition side, it provides further information about the study, the streams of information being collected, the types of surveys provided as part of it, etc. And we're going to explore this interface a little bit more in coming hours so that you can come up with an appreciation for some of the features provided here by the system, okay? With the recognition that, that some of these features are only going to have the full implications understood as you're working on project needs or get to explore in more depth. I would note that there's a set of tabs here under the study that you can explore more. One of them relates to compliance, better called perhaps adherence these days. Over here in the streams area, we can select a particular user, a date range, and then select a stream in which we have interest. Maybe it's my stream involving GPS, let's say, or let's say a stream involving accelerometer. Here's accelerometry and GPS, 2 streams, and I can say go, and it will provide information on the number of records here, the number of records collected from this person over time as part of GPS. This is records per hour, okay? This indicates, okay, this particular person, for some date, it's kind of along the x-axis is time. So if we look at, say, July, this would have been July 12th, for example. They would have had about 350 records or so collected. And you'll notice there's this kind of pattern here where during certain periods it's high, during certain periods it's low. Some periods, indeed, it's very, very high, okay? And these will correspond to different patterns, perhaps patterns being indoors and outdoors. Here's accelerometer, okay? And you'll notice the volume of data here is much larger. On a per hour basis, this person is having thousands of data points recorded, okay? Over time.
Before
Yes.
we go further,
Yes.
there might be some differences for those who are using Firefox.
Okay.
So, so you might not be able to exactly click on that. If you see a problem, if you use Chrome, you should be able to follow up with this, with the steps that Nate is going through.
Okay.
But if you do have a problem, please let me know.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. Unfortunately, I don't have Firefox on my Windows installed. So.
Yes, so I think Chrome is installed on all the machines, so if you have a problem, you can switch to Chrome or just
Right.
please let me know.
They'll just have to retype their password and all that. Yeah, but yeah. Okay. So, yeah, apologies. I'm doing this in Chrome, and thanks for letting us know, Mohammed, about the difference in participant experience.
Tool is also not work on IE.
The what?
Not work on IE.
On Internet Explorer?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can use Chrome. Chrome is already installed there. So
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks for letting us know. That's helpful to know. And I hadn't been aware of the variability, but it's an advised thing. So it sounds like Chrome is the browser of choice for this in terms of more detailed interaction. So ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice that there's some differences between these graphs. There are some swings in availability of accelerometer information, but more pronounced swings, more marked swings in GPS availability. And later in the week, Kevin will be talking about, and a little bit Mohammed this afternoon, a little bit about why that might be, why GPS exhibits such pronounced swings, whereas whereas accelerometer smaller ones. And it has to do with situations where GPS is visible and where it's not, such as in a large building versus in other contexts. Okay. There's also an activity tab here. The activity tab allows you, for example, to get a sense for the same user for a shorter period of time. You can set the date range sort of for activity as measured through accelerometer. To interpret that, again, will benefit from later lectures on sensors. Meanwhile, there's a location tab. And I want to draw your attention to this one. In the location tab, ladies and gentlemen, we can request for a given user over a certain period to display their location information. Okay, so here's user 231, which is a user with which I enjoy a measure of familiarity. And you'll notice there's a duration here shown of time by which to display. Now, just to make the processing a little bit faster, what I'm going to do is change the beginning of this time. I'm going to click on duration, and we can choose the start time from which we wish to display information. And I'm going to choose it to be February 1st. Okay? February 1st here, and I'm going to say apply. Okay? And then I'm going to choose the end time to be the end of February, the 29th. Okay, there we go. And yes.
When you open it, you have to choose start and end.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So the left is start, the right is end.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then it highlights that period. Just
got it. Okay. That's good to know about the interface. Okay. So 1st through the 29th, and you'll notice up here, as Mohammed points out, it's highlighted that. Okay. Great. 1st through the 29th, and I'm going to ask for a heat map here, and it's going to go off and summarize what will be actually quite a bit of data. I should have really limited it to 1 month. And you can see this participant traveled during this time. You can see that they spent a significant amount of time in 3 locations. One was Boston. Spent a certain layover in Toronto of note, St. Paul, and Saskatoon here. Okay.
I didn't turn off their GPS during the flight.
It was in airplane mode. I can speak with authority on that.
Well, obviously it was working.
Yes, yes, it was. I think airplane mode. Now, if we zoom in on this, so you can move around here. If we zoom in, let's go up to Saskatoon, our fair city, and let's zoom in here. And what you'll see is a pattern of variability within that city as well as to where they're spending time. Okay. Here, this is a participant who spent time at a couple different areas within the city. Particularly was well represented in the University in Greystone Heights area. Also spent some time downtown at a few other locations in the city, the airport, and some locations up in the north of the city. So this gives some understanding about where this person is spending time. Do you folks see that? Something like this? Okay. The other form of display here is a temporal display.
Oh, just before you press go, I give you, like I should say something about temporal.
Okay.
Temporal gives you a trajectory,
yes.
And if you pick a 2-month period, your browser might have way too much data to deal with.
Okay, so let's pick a smaller period. Maybe a 2-week period.
Maybe a 2-week period.
From
I would say even go with 2-day period because the trajectory for 2 days is still a lot of different places.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay. So maybe we'll do it from January to, and then I have to click here. I can just click. Okay, January 1st to January 4th.
And we can expand it after that, of course. But just
yeah. So I'll do that. January 1st through January 4th, and I'll say go. And here we'll see, this participant went from apparently between Saskatoon and the areas up by Duck Lake. And if you scroll back here, what you'll actually see is the temporal sequence. So you'll see on the early morning hours of the new year, they were at home in Saskatoon. And you'll notice that in the afternoon of January 1st, they actually went up to Duck Lake, and then they returned thereafter back to Saskatoon, and then in subsequent days, they went around Saskatoon just a little bit. So this gives us, as Mohammed emphasized, a temporal sequence. You can actually see them traveling up to Duck Lake in the afternoon of the first.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same works for a 2-month period as well, but it's just going to be
a lot more.
A lot more.
Yeah. Okay. Another type of display that you can get through this website has to do with an important consideration, although the one that's retreated as a major issue, which has to do with battery. It used to be in the first generations of our data collection systems, the battery life was king, and so many things needed to be planned around what was possible for battery. With the Ethica Health system, pioneered by Mohammed and entirely rewritten and re-engineered, power efficiency was one of its key goals, and it's actually achieved now a very for a particular, for example, time after a battery charge, what fraction of the battery has been consumed. And you'll notice that naturally, as time goes up, there's a larger fraction of the battery consumed. But a lot of this drain, it turns out, is going to occur independently without the data collection on the app. So it actually tends to bend the curve for the worse. In other words, it tends to have a fairly limited impact on battery life these days. But it gives some sense as to the battery profile of different users within the study. Okay, just walking you through a few other portions that you'll be exploring later today. Going down in the left-hand tab, there's a whole tab called Surveys. Okay, and the Surveys tab can be explored from a couple of perspectives. One is you can click Definition, and you'll notice there's a whole bunch of surveys to find here. And these surveys can be expanded. These are questionnaires, survey instruments. It allows you to edit them and even release them. And there's an editor here, which I won't be demonstrating now, but will no doubt be shown later today or tomorrow. Okay. You'll notice also there's a summary here of the number of people that have responded to, for example, this survey instrument, the number that have canceled it, and the number that have expired it here, that have let it expire. So a survey can come up, a questionnaire can come up, and if someone doesn't answer it within some defined time, defined on a per study and per survey basis, is that right? Or is it all surveys within a given study of the same expiration time?
Per survey.
Per survey, okay? Alternatively, we can go to statistics about surveys. So these provide statistics about people's answering of a survey. So maybe we'll choose, for example, physical activity barriers here, okay? And we could say go here, okay? And you'll notice that here we have a summary of the number of times that a given person has filled out a survey, let it expire, or has canceled it. And you'll notice the predominant user here. This is a user-triggered survey. It's something which they actually press a button for. And you'll notice that they filled it out 257 times, they've canceled it 7 times, and let it expire 1 time. Alternatively, we can pick one which is a sampling one, which is an ecological momentary assessment that assesses them, asks them a question, physical activity sampling, and we could say go. And here we'll see these are for questionnaires that pop up during the day. User 231 has finished 55 of these, but has let 306 of them expire or 3 be canceled. Okay. So this gives a sense of kind of response rates. Alternatively, we can go to responses here. Okay. Now responses on the left-hand side will allow us to select a participant, and I will choose once again participant 231, who enjoys a certain number of virtues to recommend him in terms of reliability of response, and perhaps in other characteristics as well. And in the survey area, I'm going to again choose physical activity barriers. So how did I do that? Over here on the left-hand side, I chose responses. And then I chose 231, and for the surveys, I chose physical activity barriers. Are you folks following this? Okay, I'm going to say go, and it will grind data. So it will go and it will frog the information in the database and prepare it. And you'll notice there's 2 types of information that you're going to want to be able to take into account in coming days. One type of information that's presented are the questions about the barrier. And you see this is a small survey asking, can you photograph a barrier and explain why you think this is a barrier? This is due to pressing a button. This is called up, and the button says, report, if there's a barrier of physical activity, and it's asking, could they photograph it? And in responses here, ladies and gentlemen, you'll actually see examples of barriers. In this case, it's literally a physical barrier. It's a closed door. Here's a cracked sidewalk. Here's an irregular sidewalk of the sort that cracked my ribs about a month or 2 ago. Here's a dilapidated park bench. Here's a bit of litter. Here's some droppings from kookaburras or some other bird on the sidewalk. Here's a running path that empties into a very busy street, and irregular sidewalks and ends to the path. Okay. Here's a seat with graffiti on it. Okay. We can click on this and have a closer look. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this survey responses allows us to browse the response to particular survey questions. But I'd like to highlight something. I'm going to go back to the same user, same study, and I'm going to choose download here. Okay? Ready? I'm going to choose download. And this is going to download for me a zip file. And this zip file, if I were to open it, so again, I needed to put the participants in the survey, say go, and then do download. And if I go open this, okay, and I go open it up here, you'll notice there's a subfolder called responses. And if I were to go open that up in a tool like Excel, or for that matter, I could load it into R or into OpenOffice, what I will see is actually information provided by this user as part of the study. And this includes things like when there was a response, how long it took them to fill it out, and information on the picture associated with it, etc. Okay? So you can also see when a survey is canceled. Just to give you a different, well, I think we'll move on, but sometimes the surveys include many items, in which case the downloaded file would include many components. So that's the sort of file which you might load into analysis tool to figure out, for example, response times, or figure out patterns associated with the response. Alternatively, and this is the final thing I'll show you right now in this little mini tour of the system, there's a response map. Do you see that? Do you see that, folks? Okay, that's again under the surveys on the left-hand side. There's a response map. I'd like to select that same participant, and I'd like to plot out their physical activity barriers, okay? The barriers they've identified to physical activity. And I'm going to say go. And you'll notice from the background image that this is going to be geotagged information. So now we see information about barriers to physical activity from a number of different surrounds, okay? And you'll notice these little push pins are placed in the map. If we click on a given push pin, we can see the specifics of that circumstance. So here's a barrier to physical activity reported in the Minneapolis area. And in fact, down below, you'll see multimedia recording in the form of audio where this person is specifying why it's a barrier, okay? And it's a voice, in this case, some of you may recognize. Similarly, for these barriers up here, we can go, this one has no comments on why it's a barrier. Some of them do, some do not. And the pictures and the audio can help provide a picture as to why these are barriers. In this particular case, this participant's travel brought him worldwide, and you'll notice there's also some barriers to physical activity in the otherwise highly supportive environment of the fair nation state of Australia. So there's barriers collected worldwide by this one participant, okay? And in this case, as in many situations, we can add additional participants to see barriers contributed by additional people in the course of our explorations. Naturally, you can zoom in here, and if we want to see where barriers were identified, for example, in Massachusetts area, we could see that this participant tended to report barriers in two locations. Some of them up on the coast here, and then some down closer to Boston. Okay. So once again, we can click on these things and see information about the barriers that were reported. So these are questionnaire, so-called survey types of reporting provided by the website. Now, I provided a very high-level overview of a lot of the features of the website. We'll be coming back to this over time to highlight certain features of the data through this website, but it's worth getting to know this interface. The fact that we have these studies on the left-hand side, we have an overall dashboard here, which provides us information about studies as a whole, in which we're subscribed or to which we are, and for which we're administrators. There's these studies that you explore by expanding them when we have an indication, a little left-facing kind of triangle shape or V shape. We can click on that and expand it. And then we can explore each study, taking into account the particular participants, time ranges, in particular instruments such as survey instruments or sensor streams in which we're interested. Okay? A little bit about that website. There's some further components of this website to handle account management that I'm not covering here. There's a menu toggler here that will toggle on and off that menu. And critically, this afternoon, we'll be featuring this new study. Okay? This allows you to create a new study via this system with a touch of a button, filling in a bit of information. We can create a new study for which we'll serve as the administrator. Okay? We're going to come back to that this afternoon. We'll be creating two studies. One, a sort of template study, just to try out some ideas. Two, we'll be creating a study for your area of interest starting today. And then we'll populate the features of that study going forward. So these studies over here on the left-hand side, those are the sort of studies that can be created through this new study button up at the top. Any questions about what we've heard? Any questions about the interface, the process of logging in, the process of downloading the app, of opting into studies? It's a buzzing, blooming confusion, I know. But are there any questions I could address now before we shift gears and step back and talk, okay, how do we make sense of this? Obviously, this is some software platform. We're going to try to fit it in to understanding of the challenges that we face in the health research area, the pressing challenges that confront policymakers, and also talk about it in the context of the characteristics of the types of data that we get from this, types of information versus the types of data we get through traditional instruments and how they can cross-leverage each other. Any questions? Yes?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it from admin.
From an admin standpoint right now.
What do participants see if they want to log in?
It's a great question. And probably I should have separated that process so we could have seen the participant view. So participants, I'll come to address your question, what do participants see?
Yeah.
Let me emphasize one thing they do not see right now, which is information from anyone else. Right? We are working towards a system down the road which will likely allow for elective sharing. Like you can imagine barriers to physical activity, that might be something I want to share with someone, right? Others in my community who are also interested in the barriers in my community. We care about our community, we each share these things. And down the road, that's an important strategic direction for us. But for now, when someone logs in, basically what they can see, what they have access to is information collected from themselves. Now, that may sound strange. Why would you want to see information collected for yourselves? Well, there's a couple reasons to this. One is to learn a little bit about your patterns of behavior, and particularly if you're thinking about collecting data on heart rate variability and EDA, which might indicate stress responses. You know, where do you experience high levels of stress during the day? What are the triggers for those? Those might be the sort of information that you could learn from an experience, from browsing a situation like this. But there's other reasons as well, besides learning from your patterns, besides having a more perfect mirror of your activity. Another component you might be interested in is actually going back and deleting data that you entered earlier because you don't feel comfortable with it being released. You know, Ethica system, if you hold up your phones and you look at the interface, there's actually a button. It says ZZZ in decreasing size up in the upper right. On some of the smaller form factor phones, it may be under the ... menu. And this is a request for Ethica to stop data collection, okay, for a defined period. It's for an hour. And you can press it again and snooze data collection. But the point is sometimes you forget. You know, sometimes there may be information that you've recorded and you wish you didn't. Maybe someone's with you and later remark, oh man, you're running, you're tracking where we're traveling, you know, I don't want that track. So if you want to go back and delete things, that's another future reason we may want to expose this information. I don't think there is an option to opt out of studies via the phone, but right now, Mohammed, we don't have it yet enabled that you can delete data on the system. We will probably down the road.
No, you can delete it.
You can,
yeah,
on the website.
Yes.
Okay. So that's another reason. I mentioned social sharing as being another reason down the road you might be interested in seeing this. I think for ethics reasons, being able to tell participants that they always can go log in and see all the information collected from them, that provides some notion of informed consent, which is meaningful. That that we provide them that ability to see and to opt out based on that. So I think it's a part of our system right now. The view for participants. That's I'd say it's a little bit early. It's early in its development, maybe even embryonic, but it's a very important direction of expanding things. Mohammed, do you want to expand on my comments there?
There are two things that are very important in designing this, and that because we don't really have an answer for any of those, that's why we haven't really gone forward with the development of that. One is depending on the study design, you might want to actually give access to participants to see their data, or not to. Because you know that if you actually feed back data to participants, it might affect their behavior during the study, and it might invalidate your study. So, and because of this Hawthorne effect, as it's called, some studies actually, they choose to block participants' access to their data during the study progress to make sure that this doesn't influence their behavior throughout the study. While some other ones, they're interested to motivate them by basically providing them access to the data, to motivate them to come there, check what they have provided, and maybe this even increases the compliance throughout the study. That's one thing. So, well, this is easy because either they want to give access or not. The harder question to answer is that what makes participants interested to come and check? Right now, we have chosen a very, very easy approach. Basically, whatever you see here from the administrative perspective for researchers, participants can see the same thing, but just populated with their own data. But that's not interesting for 99% of people out there, because they don't care about graphs and pie charts or plots and those things. They probably are interested in more infographic information. You probably have to work on how you want to present this information. Like, for example, instead of showing a heat map of their GPS data, they probably are more interested in a diary of the places they have visited, which is a lot simpler, but it resonates with them a lot more. Now, what sort of visualization is more interesting to them? It's a harder question to answer. It's something we are trying to actually work with a few groups to design some visualizations that can be interesting for them. But for now, as I said, we just chose the easy approach and said whatever we design for researchers, we can just populate it with the participants' data and show it to them in case that they like it.
Yeah, and like many aspects of the system, I think it's fair to say that a lot of components are being driven by needs expressed by partners or potential partners in terms of, needing certain features to be responsive to the needs of their research priorities or their institutional needs for the data. So this is an area where some of our partners have talked with us one way or the other, and I think there's innovation going on. Okay, yes, Andrew.
Just continuing around the compliance and the ethics issue. I mean, can these data be subpoenaed?
Yes. So we in our ethics documents tend to have. You'll notice.
Cover this later.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So we'll have a significant discussion of confidentiality and privacy, and also in the example ethics documents currently on the materials for the boot camp, you'll notice there are a number of places there, both in consent forms, particularly, which say that if these data are requested by police related to law enforcement, the data may be released to them. I think it says maybe.
And I guess the other questions around information that you collect. So, for example, if you're asking questions, so notifiable behaviours around,
right.
For example, physical abuse, or if you've got someone who is expressing suicidal ideation.
Indeed.
In a study, for example, we're interested in.
Yeah.
What do you do? But what are there contingencies and so on that you've kind of experienced or had experience with around that sort of issue?
Yeah. So this has been a point of significant discussion, particularly for some of our studies with very vulnerable populations. For example, intravenous drug use populations, for reasons of HIV, populations of inpatient suicidal individuals or individuals who have known to suffer suicidal ideation, and individuals in communities which suffer a high burden of mental health issues. And it's led to study designs which make it clear and which communicate to the participant that this is not a situation where a clinician is going to be online monitoring on an ongoing basis their responses, and the responses will be looked at retrospectively, but with no ensuring that they'll be looked at in a timely fashion, within a day or two, because some of our clinical partners are understandably concerned that if one of the people in the study presses a button indicating suicidal ideation and views that as a call for help, that it could be emotionally distressing and potentially devastating if that call goes unanswered, for example, and so making it very clear on the part of the participant, what that really means and what it doesn't mean is part of the challenge there. I think it's an area where there's a lot of further thinking and refinement in terms of the guarantees and in terms of the interface to the participants that are needed. But providing clear statements that this data will only be looked at, retrospectively weeks or months later, and so on.
In some ways,
Yeah.
it provides more. It's a better situation ethically in some situations, because usually in those sorts of instances you collect information by questionnaire or whatever.
That's right.
So here's the forms, the contingency is here's some numbers you might need to call if you're feeling distressed after.
That's exactly right.
Whereas if you actually are collecting that information there and you've got a contingency in place, well, if some flag goes off and you do have a clinician who can be online or whatever, maybe a more effective.
Quite right. It's just that for reasons we'll be talking about technically, we are hesitant about providing a guarantee that even the data will hit our servers within minutes or hours. I mean, someone could be canoeing in northern Saskatchewan, or it could be, on a trip out to Ayers Rock in the outback, and they're out of cell phone contact for long periods. And our system is very robust to that. It stores up the data in the meantime, but part of what that means is if they put out a call for help with the system, it may not even be registered on our servers until a day later. These are textured issues, and we'll be spending a lot of time on aspects of study design, ethics, confidentiality in coming days. So
one thing I
look forward to that.
Whether the data can be subpoenaed or not. We have seen that different studies, especially based on their jurisdiction, they treat it differently.
Yeah.
Like one of the Canadian studies, they just had a disclaimer that if there is a data collected, we have to, and police asked for it, we have to comply. So it's just your responsibility that we don't want the data to be recorded. You should just make sure that it's not recorded. While another study, they that happened in the States, they got something called certificate of confidentiality, which based on the statement of that, it makes them prone to any subpoenas from the government. Now, how strong that is, I'm unaware of. It's a very tricky content, and that's why I think the area, the interface that Nate showed quickly, and we just saw in the glimpse that the part that talked about the consent form that they press register. I think that's an important part to just make sure that this includes a few items that can be important, like what is the confidentiality around it, what is the responsibility, and so on. But I'm sure we'll discuss this in more details later on.
So the other question I've got is around GPS as well. So can you have your GPS turned on for this app, but turned off for, so say people are happy to provide their information for a study, but they don't want to provide their information to Google. Can you opt in, or once you've turned your GPS on, presumably it's recording for all of your apps?
You can. This is the. That's a good question, but the answer, the answer is a bit complicated. So you can do that depending on if. So let's only focus on Android. On Android, you can pick different apps and say you want your GPS, you want this app to access GPS, but this app not to. Now, Google, but you mentioned Google as the other app. Well, they stand in a very favorable position. Like if you would say, for example, a running app, for example, Runkeeper, can you say, I want to provide my GPS data to this app, but not to my running app? That is possible. But Google, as I said, because they are running the operating system, so they are in a favorable position, so they can still have access to the data, though you are able to go to Google settings and say, I don't want this data to be collected. But that's, you have to opt out explicitly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, one other thing I just thought I'd mention about risk of illegal activity. We do also have disclaimers beyond the disclaimer about illegal behavior potentially being subject to subpoena. We do have disclaimers also, well, it's not disclaimers, we have injunctions against using the phone while driving, operating a motor vehicle, so that, because if you think, if we're asking people these questionnaires, or if we're asking them, could you press a button, you know, when you're feeling stressed, or, you know, press a button when you encounter, you know, a mosquito, we don't want them doing that, you know, while in the driving position of a car. And our ethics board has been actually quite particular about that, you know, having in there a disclaimer, under no conditions are you to use this phone while driving a motor vehicle. Yeah. Anyway, bunch of different features, a glimpse. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that this raises, but it's going to help to see this as a concrete example of a data collection system when we step back and go to a reflection on what is this sort of data we're collecting, what is its role within the context of health insight. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to stop that initial recording.